You've adjusted your pricing, you've studied your market, you've worked on your revenue management strategy. But how do you actually know if it's working? Hey there, I'm Stacy St. John. I'm a short-term rental investor and property manager, and I manage a portfolio of about 45 properties. And this is the sixth and final training in our PriceLabs training series. So I wanted to end by answering one of the most important questions of all. What does good actually look like? Because revenue management can leave you constantly second guessing yourself. Should I have more bookings? Is my occupancy too low? Is my ADR high enough? Am I outperforming my market or am I leaving money on the table? Well, today, Kyle from PriceLabs is giving us a practical health check. He's going to walk us through specific metrics he looks at and the order he looks at them to determine whether a property is on the right track or not. We're talking booking pickup, occupancy, ADR, RevPAR, base price, market performance, and even how your listing itself can affect the results you're seeing. And I especially want you to stay with us to the end because Kyle is going to show us something that goes far beyond pricing altogether. One of the biggest indicators that an Airbnb is positioned to win, and an example of a listing scoring a 9.9 out of 10. So instead of wondering, am I doing this right? By the end of this training, I want you to know exactly what to look for. So let's go ahead and jump in. So today we are joined by Kyle Driscoll, our favorite senior solutions consultant at PriceLabs. Kyle, thanks as always for being with us.
Thank you so much. These are a blast to record, and hopefully your audience gets a lot out of them.
I know they will. My friend. So I am so excited to do this episode because a lot of people, especially when it comes to their pricing, their revenue management, they're second guessing themselves. They're wondering, I don't know if I'm doing well or if I'm not. So I want to talk about what good looks like. All right. So I would love to bring your PriceLabs dashboard up on the screen, and I would love for you to show us from your perspective, what are the first things you're checking and in what order to know if someone's on the right track?
Yeah, absolutely. So in some of the previous videos we talked about some additional metrics that you can add to your pricing dashboard. So I'm gonna hit those real quick again. But I think one of the most important ones for understanding, hey, is this working, is going to be bookings pickup. This gives us a nice visual of, hey, have I been getting any active bookings over the past 15 days? If you're not, that's probably hurting you in the long run. So we want to see anywhere between 1 and 4 bookings over the past 15 days. That tells you you're really healthy. If we're in 4, if we're pushing more than that, you've probably left money on the table somewhere. And then if you're at 0, you probably might need to change the pricing or change some type of setting, right? Now, the other ones that are important, and this is kind of low-hanging fruit, so to speak, but your occupancy numbers, they tell you how you're performing against the market with the coloring that we have in here. And I've prefaced this on a few of these videos. Kyle's not a bad revenue manager. I just didn't put dummy data into my account. But right here, red is indicating that we need some love on these listings. Now, those colors will change as you're meeting with the market. Those can be really good indicators of how you're performing kind of overall. Obviously, we don't want to be at 100% occupancy at a really low ADR. We don't want to be at 0% occupancy with a really high rate. And we want to be closely in line with the market, if not beating it slightly. So these can be really beneficial for you, these 4 metrics in particular for the view. Now, if you have historically had your property for a while, like if you've got a couple of years worth of data or even last year's data, bringing in metrics that are the RevPAR metrics can be really beneficial for you as well. Now, I like looking at RevPAR in the past so I can understand how things have been performing. Think of this as a past metric, these as a current metric for you. But you can hover over these and see, are you performing well? If I look at this one, I've lost about half of my RevPAR. That probably comes because I'm not getting any occupancy.
Right.
With this one, kind of the same thing. This one's actually outperforming last year. So that's a good sign. This is a healthy property. even though it doesn't look all that great over here. Same with this one. This one wasn't existing last year, but these can be very beneficial for you. The other place that I would really suggest getting familiar with is that neighborhood data and just understanding where other people are booking out at. I think that can be really, really beneficial for you. Your audience has seen me pull this up quite a bit, but just taking a look in here and seeing where people have been booked up. And again, occupancy chart's great for you. If you only see a little bit of gray in your background, again, that indicates that it's booked up. Probably tells you might need to focus in on something. If you look down here at your pickup metric, that will also help you out with this situation as well. That's where I would start off by looking to see if I'm performing well.
Love that. Love that. Okay. So next question, I want to ask you, if someone is looking at this data and they're recognizing, hey, I do need to make some updates, but I don't want to just go and arbitrarily change my base price, because that impacts every booking. I want to only look at changing my prices for some specific dates. We've talked about this in some other videos, but I'd love for you to talk us through date-specific overrides and when to use them and when not to use them.
Yeah, absolutely. So best case for using date-specific overrides is if you've identified something in PriceLabs pricing that maybe you want to tweak just a little bit. Maybe that's going up, maybe it's going down. On the downside of it, the best time to use, like taking my rate down or taking my minimum stay down with a date-specific override, the best use cases, in my opinion, are when we can identify that the market is going to be down. So like right here, and I'm in a Knoxville, Tennessee property right now. Football games move over the fall on fall Saturdays. So right here, I know for a fact there's no football game on September 12th. I need to make sure that I'm able to get booked up. Now, PriceLabs has my rate really nice here. It's down towards the bottom of the market. But if I had looked up here and my rate had been a little bit elevated, that would be something I would look at. Make sure whenever you see these spikes where the gray solid line is on top of the red solid line, especially if there's a gap like that where when you hover over it, it says minus 33% down. Take a look at those rates up here. These two coincide together. And that to me is one of the best use cases for making these tweaks on the downside. The other one is if you're trying to generate some bookings in the near term, date-specific override can be very, very beneficial. I believe on a previous video we had talked about, hey, I want to move my minimum price just on this near term, but I don't want to change it for the rest of my calendar. Mm-hmm. I can just come right here, grab these and say, okay, well, I'm going to change my minimum price by a percentage. And I'm going to say, you can take 10% off of that. Or I could say, you know what, it's 68 there, but I'm good with 50 for this time period because I really need a booking. And now by using that minimum price one, you'll see that some of these will go down to 50 and some of them won't, but they'll have that room to move. So now this 65 could become 50. This one could as well. So those are really good use cases for the bringing it down. Now, I rarely suggest setting anything in the final price that is fixed, meaning I come in and instead of saying, hey, move it down to my minimum price of 50, if I came in here and I said $50 is my price, I generally would not suggest doing a fixed price override right here unless you are really, really on top of things and managing your PriceLabs account daily. This is something that a lot of folks do, and it creates havoc for them, so to speak. I've talked on the negative side a little bit. Now let's talk on the positive side. We're going to go, and when we're trying to make a little bit more money, again, neighborhood data, I want to come in and I'm going to see where my opportunity lies. No idea what just happened right there, but I can see right here the market is pacing incredibly ahead. Believe this is the Texas versus Tennessee game, and the market is 54.5%. It's pacing ahead 50% more than it was last year. No game last year, game this year. Let's make sure rates look good. The rates look pretty good, but maybe I look at this one and I say it's Texas. I've got a really cool saloon bar that the Texas fans are really going to like. I think I can make more money than what PriceLabs says. Well, I'm going to look right here and I'm going to pay attention to what these markets are saying. And if I look at that 50th to 75th percentile, it goes up to 987. Maybe I want to be a little bit higher in there. I'm going to come into my calendar. We're going to go to that date, which unfortunately I've already got booked up. So we're going to pretend this one is the one we were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Come in here and let's bump that bad boy up a little bit. And maybe I do 15%, maybe 5, maybe 10, whichever one you want to decide on. Start with 5 here. And then I can do an expiration that says, yeah, bump that up. But if we get within 90 days, go ahead and take that extra bump off for me. That way it kind of auto resets for you. Those to me are the best use cases. But poor use cases would be doing something arbitrarily without knowing where your rate sits at in the market. Just coming in and saying, oh man, 603, that's too high. I'm going to take 20% off of this rate. This is a poor use case of using a date specific override because there's not really that data behind it.
Gotcha. And along those same lines, let's talk about last minute discounts, because I know that is a tool for folks to use. Mm-hmm. When you feel like last minute discounts actually help, and when you feel like they could be detrimental, even without the host knowing.
Yeah, so this is something I teach a master class once a month for PriceLabs customers, and this comes up all of the time. Last minute pricing is a piece of our algorithm, and it works for you to drop rates essentially after you get out of that standard booking window. It's going to start lowering rates for you. So real quick, let me take off this minimum price that we just set. And you're going to be able to see that right here. And just out of the box, you're going to have the balanced market-driven last-minute price. What that means is it looks at your hyperlocal market, those properties that are really close to you. You can consider it the 350 closest properties. And it's going to say what last-minute strategy is best for this. And we set that up for you. And as you can see it in your pricing customizations, it will start dropping rates for you as you get closer to that last-minute date. Now, one thing you can go in and do when it comes to customizing these, you have a few preset options. So if I go into last minute, maybe I want to be a little bit more aggressive, I can come click on the aggressive one, and that's going to make the percentage a little bit more, right? Or maybe it's too much for me. I don't want it to back off too much. I can go conservative. You can also build out a specific rule for yourself if you want to. Again, I'm not going to cover this too much for the audience, but if you have any questions, you got Learn More right there. And you've also got the How Does It Work to kind of help you out with these. But particularly on Airbnb, last minute pricing interacts very, very differently than the way ours does. So if you're using PriceLabs, we are lowering rate day by day. For this listing, it's over the last 14 days. And then we send a price to Airbnb, and that's that price. And my awesome teammate, Karishma, gave me some insider information this week that I didn't even really know. But if your pricing is more than 20% of a discount from where it has been on average in the past 30 days, you're still going to get that strike-through pricing on Airbnb. You don't have to use their last-minute discount to achieve that. Now, with that said, the way we do our pricing is okay. I'm not going to pull up my pricing logs and show you, but basically we drop rates slowly over time. And then we send a rate for February 17th that says, this is $68. That's the rate. Well, when you use Airbnb's last minute functionality, it takes this rate of 68 and it says, okay, let's add that to what that rate was yesterday, and the day before, and the day before, and the day before, and the day before. And what it does is it averages your rate for a day over the last 30 days, and then it applies the discount off of that. So if you have a pricing tool like PriceLabs, and let's say your rate was pretty high, let's say it started at 130, and then it went down to 68, you're not going to get a 10% discount off of that 68. You're going to get a 10% discount off of that average of rate. Mm-hmm. So you could end up with a rate that is much higher than what PriceLabs is actually suggesting there. So not going to tell you not to use it, but it's important for everybody to understand kind of how that works and make the choice that you want there. If you do use Airbnb's last minute discounting, you're going to want your percentage to be a little heavier than you most likely think. If you're thinking 10%, you're probably going to want to be more at 20-25% on that discount.
Yeah. Love that. I want to also go to, the fact that Airbnb does have additional merchandising, and a lot of folks are like, well, I just want to make all my adjustments in PriceLabs. And I'm the hugest fan of PriceLabs. I also just want to encourage folks to learn about the additional merchandising that Airbnb does offer, because it can be helpful. And I won't bore anyone with those details right here, but I do think it's important to have your finger on the pulse of those mechanisms as well in case you need them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm a big proponent of some of Airbnb's discounting things, like the first 3 bookings, huge. Length of stay, that's huge. Or I'm sorry, the last minute can be very beneficial, but you just need to understand how it's calculated and see if it's getting you to that rate that you really need it to be. So again, nothing wrong with having it set on. Just know you might want to set the percentage a little bit stronger than what you were initially expecting.
Yep. Okay, I want to go back to a regular check-in routine. We've talked in previous conversations how important it is to check in with your PriceLabs account, weekly, if at all possible, if not monthly. What is a regular check-in routine that you might recommend? And when you're looking at things, when do you know when to act, and when do you know to just let PriceLabs do its thing?
Yeah. I think understanding the booking window is the most important thing if you really want to make decisions inside of PriceLabs and potentially get over and override it, so to speak. The workflow that I would have if I were dealing with somebody that just has 1 or 2 properties and trying to learn PriceLabs, definitely coming in here and setting up metrics that I've kind of talked about ad nauseum here, but recommended base price to base price ratio, min price hitting days over the next 30, and then bookings pick up over the past 15. This is the first one I'm looking at all times. How are my bookings coming in? If I do have bookings coming in, you've got a nice little area over here. It's called Booking Insights. Now, you may have your finger on the pulse of your listing already because of the notifications you get when somebody books, but this is something that can be very beneficial for you just to understand what has actually happened with my bookings. And this also lets you see if you have historical information where there might be an opportunity for you. So if I come down here, we can see I had a huge opportunity in June and I missed that one. And come look at my bookings. Unfortunately, I haven't put any bookings in here. So this looks really, really bad, but this can be super beneficial for you just in understanding, hey, where did they come from? What was my ADR? This is something that I think is very underrated, is understanding where your booking source is. Now, if you're just using Airbnb, it's just going to be Airbnb, but understanding where you might be able to pivot a little bit. If you've got too many eggs in one basket, long-term, you might be able to try to get some bookings on Vrbo. So that lots of good information here in your bookings report, but that would be the second step that I would take. Let's see what has been coming in. And then after that, I'm immediately going over to neighborhood data. I'm looking for any outliers, anything where my pricing might have spiked up a little too much. Looking at that bad guy right there. We already kind of covered our safety minimum price, but I know why this is that high. It's because of the safety minimum price. But that might be something that triggers me to go, might want to go tweak that. Paying attention to as you get closer, where are those spikes at still if you're not booked up is very, very important as well. Now, there's plenty of occupancy right here for Labor Day. My rates are still a little elevated, but if we look in here, and we talked about on a previous conversation, that blue is the 50th percentile of the market. Well, if all of my rates are coming in below here and I'm not booked up, and then all of a sudden when I have some demand, my rates are coming in higher than the market booked price, that to me is an indicator I might need to manually intervene right now. I don't have a suggestion for base price. Even though occupancy looks great here, if I'm not getting booked and I'm below the market book price, I probably shouldn't be above market book price right there. So that would be an indicator for me to go in and not necessarily change it, but at least be aware of it. Come down here. Let's see if pickup's happening. Okay, so pickup's still happening right there. And then you just make an informed decision. There's one of the beautiful things about dynamic pricing and the revenue management side, or the pricing side of revenue management, is it in my opinion, it truly is just an art form. You look, you interpret the data. When you find something like this, then you get to go in and use your paintbrush, so to speak. And I would look at this and say, all right, well, even though it's Kanye, even though it's Labor Day, I don't feel comfortable being higher than the market book price. So let's go make a quick tweak. And again, you're not going to have to make a ton of tweaks. If you log in once a week, ideally, you don't have to tweak anything. Hopefully ideally, we're going up on base price because you're performing really, really well and we're getting it going. Don't think that you've got to come in here and constantly slice and dice rates. Trust the system, especially if your base price is showing in line. But that's the one thing you have to do. Make sure that this is in line, and then you don't have to do too much work inside of it. Just try to pay attention to where you could make a little bit of an impact with your own observation.
So good. So good. I'm curious, if I were to ask you, I know obviously this is your dummy account and you know what's in here, but if you were just looking at this account for the first time, what would you recognize as one thing that could be costing them money that the average consumer may not realize?
Yeah. Oh, man. It's funny because tomorrow I'll be doing live listing reviews for a couple of customers, and this is the exact scenario that I'm in. I just hop in there and I'm like, let's find where we can do something.
Right.
But I think in general, the first thing that I would look at to see if I feel like the customer has a firm understanding, or if they're even utilizing the tool to its full capacity. Do we have comp sets set up? And are those comps like what I've got set up in here, where it's, hey, I'm $93 and I got a comp at $435? Probably not that dialed in, but I think that's one place I would look at and really try to get this particular area dialed in. That's the first thing that I'm looking at. The next one is those minimum stays. Again, I've talked about it kind of ad nauseum. Visibility is incredibly important. You can always get somebody to book up these 5 days right here. As long as they're able to see that Monday's available, people can go in and they can add. If you are still extremely restrictive with your minimum stays and you're outside, or you're not beyond, within that booking window or already inside of it, like we're closer to, I'm trying to think how to exactly say this. So you're probably going to want to cut this up, but if we've passed our booking window, you're probably going to want to make sure that those minimum stays are the main thing that's set up. The other things to look for that I would instantly look for are the customizations. Do they have a bunch of things on? And if they do, and it looks like we've got a bunch on, but these are a part of our algorithm. You can see those with default and market driven. But if they had a bunch of things turned on, I would instantly ask the question, do you know what this is doing? And if they don't, then it's just something that's probably getting turned off. But that's kind of how I would approach those.
Okay, good to know. Good to know. I love that. So I'm curious, after someone watches this whole series, and obviously the different episodes that we have recorded, each kind of cover similar things that they may weave from one video to another, but also we're talking about very different topics as well. After someone watches this whole series and applies it, when do they know they've actually cracked the nut, that they're actually doing a great job in their PriceLabs account?
Yeah, I think the best thing that you can see is after the system analyzes your base price. If your base price is only moving by $1 or $2 with recommendations, that's one of the best things that you can see in PriceLabs. In addition to, obviously, we want to see our occupancy numbers up here in either blue or green. Those indicate that you're outperforming there. We do always want to outperform the market in occupancy. There's a few types of properties where maybe you don't want to outperform the market in occupancy. Again, we don't want to just get 100% occupancy, but beating the market by 1%, 2%, 5% is very, very advantageous. So that's kind of what I would focus in on. Make sure this recommended base price to base price ratio stays around where it is. Make sure that you aren't too restrictive with your min stays. Every so often, if you feel the need, or if you start to see a slowdown, hop in and run Listing Optimizer. It's not that expensive of an add-on, and there's a slim chance you might have a credit in your account right now anyways. But that is something that I would absolutely look at running occasionally. But once you run that, and I'm going to hop over here real quick, I'll show you one of the biggest signs of success that you're going to see, and that is right over here. Unfortunately, I've exposed Montrose Gardens quite a bit, but they're at a 6.9. They've got a great ranking. They are totally missing the boat. They are not getting the benefits of this because they're not getting the quality positioning as well either. And I've looked at this one as well, and their pricing is Godspeed. It's not that good. This right here is what we're looking for. Something like this. What this one is saying is, I found this from going to Airbnb.com, and it was the first one that popped up on it. I didn't search for any of the cities. It was from a market that I had looked at before, but that was right there prominent. I ran this. They're at a 9.9. There's very little they can approve. I think the only thing was they were missing, like lots of stuff coming up right here, but basically they didn't specify that they had cable. They said that they had cable program, or they didn't specify cable in the checkbox, but they say they have cable programming in the description. It's the only negative they have. If you're doing things that well with your listings and your titles and your images, the money's coming along with it because Airbnb's taking care of you. The other one that PriceLabs isn't going to unearth for you, but enjoy those 5-star reviews, especially as you're starting. Like, be proud of those. Those are something that's going to be a foundational, very important part of your business. So look at those 5-star reviews. That's success. 4-star reviews, not quite so. But if you are getting 5-star reviews, you're communicating with your guests. That's something else that you can't really quantify as easily. But I think that's a huge sign of success for your audience.
Amen. Amen. You can never go wrong with those 5-star reviews. And at the same time, I also just want to encourage folks, you do at times get something that comes in from a review perspective that isn't a 5-star and it doesn't feel good. Don't take it personally. I think it's so easy for, candidly, women especially, to have it be like a dagger through the heart. And when there's so much effort and energy put into being a great host, and when it's not recognized, it can be deflating. But just know that this is a business. Folks aren't always going to review you the way you believe they should, and we have to take that with a grain of salt. We have to respond to every review regardless, and utilize the information that's shared in our reviews so that we can take action on it and continuously improve.
Absolutely. Well, very well said, Miss Stacy.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Kyle, this has been so fun. I so appreciate you and all the wonderful knowledge you've shared right here on our YouTube channel. I feel very honored and blessed and appreciate you so much.
Right. Thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun. We spent a decent amount of time chit-chatting over the past time period, but absolutely love it. Would love to join you anytime in the future, and happy to be a part of the sisterhood. Thanks for letting Big Bald Self in here. It's much appreciated. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you bet. And there you have it. 6 trainings designed to take you from opening PriceLabs and wondering where in the world to start to actually understanding the data and using it to make smarter revenue management decisions. But remember, great pricing can only do so much if you started with the wrong deal. So if you want to take this one step further, I want you to watch my video on the CPR framework next. I'll show you exactly how I evaluate a short-term rental before I buy it using 3 things: criteria, price, and return. Because the goal isn't simply to squeeze more revenue out of a property. It's to buy the right property, give it the right strategy, and then let data help you make better decisions every step of the way. Click that video and I'll meet you there.